Okay, so now that we showed you how to disassemble the bolt and take it out of the rifle, we're going to show you how to actually get the rest of the rifle apart. Remove the receiver and the magazine floor plate from the stock. First thing you're going to want to do, get the bolt out, which we just learned how to do. Fairly simple to do. Now the second thing that may give you some trouble is this front barrel band. It has a spring that's just simply a piece of bent metal that applies pressure into this little tiny pin that comes up in this hole, and it holds this band on. Now it's really tight on this particular rifle, really tight. On some of the other ones it's not as tight. This one is going to give us some trouble because we've taken it off once before, and the spring is extremely tight, so it's difficult to hold it, and this barrel band won't slide forward. So what we've had to do is get a small punch, which I just put some tape on to help protect the metal, and a hammer, and we're just going to lightly tap this front barrel band. Now you may not have to do this on your rifle if you have one of these. I know on one of my other ones you did not have to do this. It came off by hand. But just tapping it to loosen it up, and you can see it moved a little bit. At this point, we should be able to get it off. Now another tool actually I found to help hold this spring down, just a pair of vice grips. What I'll do is wrap that spring with something that protects it, because I don't want to just chow the rifle with the vice grip. So we'll just grab it, hold that piece down. Now at this point you may have to get a little bit fancy and try to pry off the band or tap it off. Sometimes you might need someone else to help. But you can see it's coming a little bit here. Try it now. Maybe I can pull it off. This one's being a real problem right now.
Should I just stop?
If you want. Actually, at this point we can probably hammer it off.
There it goes.
There we go. So now that front band's moved off, you can slide it off. Now on a gun that has a front hood sight, if you do have one, you won't be able to just slide that piece off. You'll have to slide the front hood sight off first, which simply grabs on. You can just kind of bend it out and get it out. The next step is to get this small spring out. As you can see, it's just a bent piece of metal that just has tension on it, and that essentially holds your stock together, holds your handguard in place, holds the barrel bands in place. So the second barrel band, which also has the mount for the sling on it, just slides right off too on this rifle. At this point you can turn the rifle up and get the handguard. It just slides right off. Now you can see the cosmoline that's underneath here. This rifle's obviously not been cleaned before. That cosmoline's probably original to it, since it was refurbished somewhere in Russia. The next part is to get a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver, flip the rifle upside down. Now on a rifle that has capture screws, you're going to have to use a smaller screwdriver to get the capture screws out first. But on this rifle and most Russian captures, you won't need to do that because they won't have them. So basically take your flathead screwdriver and just unscrew the bolts that hold the magazine and floor plate and the receiver together. There's only two of them, and they're both on the bottom. After those two bolts are out, you can grab the magazine and floor plate and pull it out. On this rifle it's really tight. It might be easier actually to pull the receiver out. Sometimes you have to wiggle it around a little bit. You never know with the shellac finish they put on. The stocks are kind of swelled up inside. So there's the receiver and barrel sight, of course, separated from the rifle, covered in cosmoline. Trigger assembly. This one's actually in pretty good shape. Doesn't have much rust, a little bit of rust on the barrel, but it's actually in pretty good shape. So we'll set that down. Now we can grab the magazine and floor plate right out. You can see the magazine with the spring and the follower comes right out. And then you have your stock. This stock's obviously been used. It's quite dented up. Still got some markings underneath the shellac. Kind of hard to see though. Overall, it's in good condition though. It doesn't have any cracks. At least nothing serious. It's probably a walnut stock. We're gonna strip this off and get this thing looking good. But here's your basic pieces of the rifle: magazine, floor plate, trigger guard. Got the receiver, trigger, barrel, hand guard, bolt, barrel bands. Essentially, that's a basic disassembly, enough that you would need to do to refinish the rifle and clean it up, because of course you're going to want to get the cosmoline out of these areas and re-oil them. But that's basic disassembly of a K98.